What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel, First Presbyterian Church, Murfreesboro, Tennessee. This is your Saturday sermon preview for worship on Sunday, October 26th, 2025. Reformation Sunday. We'll talk about that in a second, but you'll notice I am wearing my Dodgers cap today. I'm recording this Friday. Game one of the World Series is tonight against the Toronto Blue Jays. I will say that I don't want to, if you want my opinion about this World Series, and I'm no expert, but the Dodgers going to win, baby. Toronto's a great team. Shouldn't be underestimated. But what can I say? I think the Dodgers we got it. We got what it takes. Enough about baseball, I'm sorry. Reformation Sunday, which is always a fun celebration, fun time of worship. If you have a kilt outfit, wear it so I'm not alone. I'll be wearing my full regalia, Scottish regalia, the full deal. This is Reformation Sunday, is a day where we remember and commemorate our the beginning of the Protestant Reformation, when Martin Luther nailed the 95 Thesis on the door of the Wittenberg door in, what was that, 15, I don't have my notes in front of me and I'm not going to stop and Google it, 1560? Does that sound right? Something like that. And then all the folks who came after him, eventually John Knox, for us Presbyterians in Scotland, and the beginnings of the Presbyterian Church there. John Knox was big time influenced by Martin Luther and also John Calvin. And so we're going to celebrate Reformation Sunday tomorrow, which will be great. Okay, we're also finishing our sermon series looking at Paul's letter to the Romans and also some themes from the Confession of 1967. And we'll be in Romans chapter 8, verses 18 through 25. Now, all of our diligent folks who watch these videos and listen to this stuff, I am encouraging you to read this on your own before worship. Romans 8, 18 through 25. And I say that because, number one, it's a complicated passage, like a lot of what Paul writes, very layered, lots of clauses stacked on top of each other. It's difficult to follow, and it's definitely hard to. If I were just to read the NRSV straight through aloud and you were listening to it for the first time, I think a lot of people would get lost. I would get lost. I do get lost reading Paul. I'd have to read it over and over again to process it, And so what I'm doing this Sunday, what I'm doing tomorrow, is I am reading a paraphrase of this passage of my own making, really, kind of combined with some other translations and stuff. Very faithful to what Paul is saying in this passage. It's not a departure from the message at all. I'm not putting any of my own, or at least I hope I'm not putting any of my own touch on this, but I shorten it into sentences that make it easier to understand, because I think that's really important. There may be some preachers out there who think that's foolish. Some just let God's word speak for itself, but hey, call me and we can talk about that if you think that's the case. Anyway, Romans 8, 18 through 25. This sermon series has felt very similar to me. This kind of, the passages we've been looking at, Paul's message is very similar, and I mentioned this in the sermon, but Romans as a whole is a letter about God's grace. Comes to us through Christ and what difference that makes in our lives. And then he kind of hits it from various angles and stuff. But it's important to remember that overarching theme of Romans being grace. And then for us, in our passage, he will have just, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this tomorrow, really spend some time on, he just finished talking about adoption and how we've been adopted into God's family through Christ. We've been given the spirit of adoption and what it means that we're adopted sons and daughters of God, heirs of God's kingdom. So it's on that, it's kind of with that in your mind, adopted. I'm adopted. What does it mean that I'm adopted? That we launch into verse 18. And so that's going to be important to keep in mind as we read what he says in verses 18 through 25. And like I said, it sounds similar to other things that he's been saying. suffering and hope, and how for the church, suffering is not the end of the story. It's definitely a part of the human experience, but God has the last word here. And so we actually can wait for that time when our adoption is made complete and God's kingdom is fully realized. And in the meantime, we suffer and there's pain and struggle. And so because of that promise, though, we can wait with hope, actually. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. That's what we're going to talk about. Going to be a bagpiper in worship. Very excited about that. Happy about that. Hope to see you all. 8:30 worship. Sunday school at 9:30. And worship again at 11 o'clock. Grace and peace, folks. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we hope to see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.